Some places hold memories too painful to let go. Places where silence whispers secrets, shadows linger, and lessons come at a horrifying price. At schools like Willow Creek, Crestwood, and Blackwood Academy, the stories aren't just warnings, they're real. Once you step inside, the past won't let you escape, and the final lesson may be your last. Introduction. A town with a dark past. Willow Creek was a small, quiet town tucked into the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, where whispers of scandal traveled faster than the wind. But the greatest scandal in its history was never spoken aloud. The tragedy of Willow Creek Middle School. Built in 1922, the school was once a source of pride for the town. Its grand architecture and ivy-covered walls stood as a testament to the community's aspirations. But in 1985, the school was abandoned after a devastating fire killed 4 students. The details of the incident were murky. Some said it was an accident. Others whispered of something far more sinister. Over time, the school became a haunting landmark, a shadow on the edge of town that no one dared to approach. But for Ava, Ryan, and Lila, it was the ultimate mystery waiting to be unraveled. Trio: dreamers and doubters. Ava was the ringleader, a fiery girl with a thirst for adventure. She loved the thrill of urban legends and ghost stories, always searching for proof that the supernatural was real. Ryan, her cousin, was the opposite, a pragmatic thinker who dismissed ghost stories as nonsense. He joined Ava's escapades only to keep her out of trouble. Lila, Ava's best friend, was a quiet and intuitive girl. She had a way of sensing things others couldn't, often feeling uneasy before something bad happened. One crisp autumn evening, Ava burst into their usual hangout spot, clutching an old newspaper clipping. "Guys, I found it. The real story about the fire at Willow Creek Middle School." Ryan groaned. "Not this again, Ava." "No, listen. 4 kids died in the fire. They were locked in the gym. People say they haunt the school, waiting for someone to tell their story." Lila shivered. Why were they locked in? "That's what we're going to find out," Ava said with a grin. Ryan crossed his arms. Or we could just not break into an abandoned school. But Ava had already made up her mind, and when Ava made up her mind, there was no stopping her. The journey begins, entering the school. That Friday, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the trio approached the gates of Willow Creek Middle School. The rusted chain-link fence loomed before them, its no trespassing sign hanging crookedly. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Ava slipped through a hole in the fence, beckoning the others to follow. "Come on, it's just an old building." The school stood like a silent giant, its broken windows glinting faintly in the moonlight. The brick walls were scarred with age, ivy creeping over the cracks like veins. A single crow perched on the roof, its eyes glinting as if it were watching their every move. Inside, the air was heavy and cold, the kind of chill that seeped into your bones. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally, the sound swallowed by the oppressive silence. The whispers begin. The group explored cautiously, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. Desks lay overturned in the classrooms, papers strewn across the floor as if the students had fled in a panic. Lockers hung open, their contents long forgotten. "It's just an old building," Ryan said, his voice too loud in the quiet. "Nothing creepy about it." As if in response, a faint whisper floated through the air. Lila froze. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" Ava asked. though her voice betrayed her nerves. It sounded like a child humming. Ryan rolled his eyes. It's probably the wind, but his flashlight trembled in his hand. They followed the sound of the gymnasium, site of the infamous fire. The smell of burnt wood lingered, and the floor was warped and blackened. A large charred spot in the center marked where the flames had raged the fiercest. Lila clutched Ava's arm. This place feels wrong. Room 104, a door to the past. As they wandered the hallways, they found themselves outside room 104. The door was slightly ajar, the number barely visible under a thick layer of grime. Ava pushed it open, and the three stepped inside. The room was eerily untouched. The desks were neatly arranged, the chalkboard still bore faint markings, and an old journal sat open on the teacher's desk. But the walls were covered in names, scratched deep into the plaster with what looked like fingernails. Lila picked up the journal and began to read aloud. The entries told the story of 4 children, Margaret, Peter, Sophie and Thomas, who had been locked in the gym as a cruel punishment. The final entry, written in shaky handwriting, read, "They locked us in. The fire is everywhere. We're scared. Please help us." Ava's voice cracked. They didn't deserve this. Yet the haunting unfolds. As they read, the air grew colder. The sound of faint giggles echoed through the room, followed by footsteps running down the hallway. The trio turned to see 4 shadowy figures standing at the edge of their flashlight beams. Children, their faces pale and eyes hollow. Margaret stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "You found our story. Will you help us?" Ryan stammered, "What do you want?" Margaret's eyes brimmed with tears. "We want to go home." A race. Against time. Suddenly, the building began to shake. Flames erupted in the hallways, just as they had on that fateful night. The children's screams echoed around them, blending with the roar of the fire. Ava shouted, "We need to get out of here!" But the hallways twisted and shifted, trapping them in a maze of heat and smoke. The shadowy children appeared again, guiding them. Margaret pointed to a door at the end of the hallway. "Take the journal. Tell the world what happened to us." Ava clutched the journal to her chest. "We promise." With the children's help, they escaped the school, just as the flames consumed it. But when they turned back, the fire was gone. The school stood silent once more, as if nothing had happened. The aftermath, restoring peace. The trio kept their promise. They shared the children's story with the town, sparking outrage and sorrow. A memorial was erected in honor of Margaret, Peter, Sophie, and Thomas, ensuring they would never be forgotten. Though the school remained abandoned, the trio felt a sense of closure. Ava often visited the memorial, leaving flowers and whispering, "You're not alone anymore." And so, the whispers of Willow Creek Middle School faded, replaced by the voices of those who finally remembered. But even now, on quiet nights, some say you can still hear the faint laughter of children, echoing through the walls of a school that will never truly rest. Introduction. The Forgotten School. Crestwood Academy was once the pride of the town of Ravenwood. Nestled in a forest clearing, the school's elegant design and sprawling grounds had made it a symbol of prestige and opportunity. But in 1979, Crestwood became the site of an unspeakable tragedy: the sudden deaths of 6 students during a stormy night. The school was closed immediately. The deaths ruled a freak accident caused by a collapsed roof. But rumors spread. Whispers of strange sightings, unexplained noises, and the presence of shadows that moved on their own. Over the years, the building decayed, consumed by time and neglect. Locals spoke of it only in hushed tones, warning their children to stay away. The Curious Friends. This tale follows 4 high school seniors, each with their reasons for venturing into Crestwood. Maya, an aspiring journalist, obsessed with unraveling mysteries for her school blog. Ethan, her skeptical but loyal best friend, always ready with a sarcastic remark to lighten the mood. Chloe, the sensitive one, plagued by vivid dreams of Crestwood and a feeling of connection she couldn't explain. Jason, the daring athlete who craved adrenaline and laughed in the face of danger. It was Chloe who first brought up Crestwood. I've been dreaming about it, about people calling for help. Maya's curiosity flared. It's a sign. We have to check it out. Jason grinned. Finally, something exciting. Let's go this Friday. Ethan groaned. Why do I hang out with you people? The night begins. On a cold, moonlit night, the 4 friends arrived at Crestwood Academy. The building loomed before them, its Gothic spires casting jagged shadows. The air was still, unnaturally quiet except for the occasional rustle of leaves. The front doors creaked as they pushed them open, revealing a grand foyer bathed in pale moonlight, filtering through cracked windows. Dust hung thick in the air, and the scent of mildew clung to every surface. Creepy, Ethan muttered. Maya shined her flashlight around, her voice tinged with excitement. This place is amazing. Imagine the stories it could tell. As they stepped further inside, Chloe paused. Her breath hitched. Do you hear that? The others listened. Faintly, from somewhere deep within the school, came the sound of the first incident. As they left the library, the group heard a loud crash from the end of the hallway. Jason, ever the brave one, led the way. They found themselves in the science lab, where a row of beakers had toppled over, spilling their contents onto the floor. Maybe a raccoon or something, Ethan suggested weakly. Jason smirked. Or maybe it's the ghosts of Crestwood. He laughed, but the room suddenly grew colder. The beakers began to rattle violently, as though an invisible hand was shaking the table. Then, with a deafening bang, the door slammed shut behind them. Okay, not funny anymore, Jason yelled, pounding on the door. Chloe whimpered, her voice trembling. They don't want us here. The history of the school. Trap sheet. In the lab. Maya flipped through a stack of old files left on a desk. She found a newspaper article detailing the tragedy of 1979. According to the report, a storm caused the roof of the assembly hall to collapse during a school play, killing 6 children instantly. But that doesn't make sense, Maya muttered. The play was cancelled that night because of the storm. Then why were they there? Ethan asked. Before Maya could respond, Chloe spoke, her voice distant, almost as if in a trance. They were lured here, promised something wonderful, but they were betrayed. The group turned to her, stunned. Chloe, how do you know that? Maya asked. Chloe blinked, as if waking from a dream. I don't know. The ghostly encounter. The door to the lab finally opened, but the hallway was no longer empty. At the far end stood the faint outline of a figure. A child. The group froze as the figure turned, revealing a face shrouded in shadow. The child raised a hand and pointed to a door. Slowly, it creaked open, revealing the entrance to the assembly hall. Jason shook his head. Nope, absolutely not. Let's leave. But Chloe began walking toward the door, as if pulled by an invisible force. We have to go in, they want us to see. The assembly hall, a place of tragedy. The assembly hall was eerily pristine, as though untouched by time. The stage was set with old props, and the faint sound of applause echoed through the room. The 6 children from the photo appeared, their ghostly forms flickering like old film. They smiled, but their eyes were filled with sadness. Margaret, the oldest looking, stepped forward. "They tricked us," she said, her voice a soft whisper. "They said we could stay forever, but they lied." "What happened to you?" Maya asked, her voice trembling. Margaret looked toward the shadows in the corner of the room. "He happened." A dark figure emerged, its form tall and monstrous. It was the spirit of the headmaster, consumed by greed and malice. He had trapped the children's souls, feeding on their fear to maintain his power. The climax, breaking the curse. The dark figure lunged at the group, its shadowy tendrils wrapping around them. Chloe screamed, her voice echoing through the hall. "Let them go!" Maya grabbed the yearbook and held it up. "This is their story. They deserve to be free." The children's spirits began to glow, their forms growing brighter as the dark figure shrieked in anger. One by one, they reached out to the friends, their touch warm and reassuring. "Thank you," Margaret whispered, her face calm for the first time. With a burst of light, the dark figure dissolved, and the children vanished. The friends escaped Crestwood as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. The school stood silent behind them, its oppressive aura lifted. True to her word, Maya wrote about the children's story, ensuring they would never be forgotten. The town finally came to terms with the tragedy, and Crestwood was demolished, replaced by a memorial park. But even years later, Maya, Ethan, Chloe, and Jason would sometimes hear faint laughter on quiet nights, a reminder of the children who were finally at peace. Some places are haunted not by spirits, but by the weight of untold stories. And once those stories are heard, the shadows fade, but they never disappear entirely. Introduction. A legend. Revived. Nestled deep within the woods, Blackwood Academy was a relic of the 19th century. Its towering stone walls and arched windows stood as a grim reminder of an era when discipline meant fear. The academy closed its doors in 1925 after a chilling incident. 20 students disappeared without a trace on the night of a thunderstorm. Rumors swirled about a cruel headmaster, Mr. Edwin Grayson, whose strict punishments turned deadly. Over the years, the abandoned school became a legend, its dark silhouette visible through the trees on moonlit nights. Locals whispered of screams echoing from its empty halls and lights flickering in the windows despite the lack of electricity. For most, Blackwood Academy was a place to avoid. But for 5 high school students, it was the perfect spot for an unforgettable night of dares and thrills. The Dare. The group of friends, each with their unique personalities, gathered in the town library after school. Emma, the brave leader who never backed down from a challenge. Dylan, the skeptic, always ready to debunk ghost stories. Sophia, the sensitive artist, plagued by vivid dreams of Blackwood. Jake, the jokester, hiding his fear behind humor. Nora, the quiet observer, whose silence often masked deep thoughts. "Let's make it interesting," Emma said, spreading out a hand-drawn map of the academy. "We split into pairs, explore the school, and meet back at the entrance in 1 hour. Whoever bails pays for pizza for a month." "I'm not paying for anything," Dylan said with a smirk. "This place is just an old building." Sophia hesitated. "I've had dreams about Blackwood. Bad dreams. I don't think we should go." "Dreams don't mean anything," Jake said, though his laugh sounded nervous. "Come on, it's just for fun." Reluctantly, Sophia agreed. They packed flashlights, a camera and snacks, and set off for Blackwood Academy as the sun dipped below the horizon. The first steps into darkness. The building loomed like a sleeping beast, its ivy-covered walls casting eerie shadows. The rusted iron gates creaked open with a groan, and the group stepped onto the cracked stone path leading to the front doors. Nora spoke for the first time that night. "It feels alive," Jake chuckled. "Yeah, alive with tetanus." The doors were heavy and cold, their wood scarred with deep gouges. When Emma pushed them open, the air inside was thick, heavy, and smelled of mildew and something faintly metallic. "Okay, let's split up," Emma said. "Dylan, you're with me. Jake, take Sophia. Nora, you're on your own." Sophia's eyes widened. "Alone? Are you serious?" "It's part of the dare," Emma said with a grin. "We'll cover more ground that way." Exploration and unease. Emma and Dylan. Emma and Dylan headed for the headmaster's office, following the map. The hallway was lined with old portraits, the eyes of the subjects seeming to follow them. Dylan tried to lighten the mood. Think they had to stand still for hours to get painted like that? But Emma wasn't listening. She was drawn to a portrait of Mr. Grayson, the infamous headmaster. His cold eyes seemed to bore into her soul, and for a moment she thought she saw his lips twitch into a smile. "I think we should move on," Dylan said, pulling her away. Jake and Sophia wandered into the gymnasium. The floor was warped, and the remains of an old basketball hoop hung precariously from the ceiling. As Jake joked about ghostly gym teachers, Sophia froze. She heard it, the faint echo of a basketball bouncing. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Hear what?" Jake asked, his voice cracking. "Then it happened again, Emma." "Closer this time." A shadow moved across the far end of the gym, and Sophia grabbed Jake's arm. "We need to leave. Now." Nora walked silently through the library, her flashlight casting long, dancing shadows. The shelves were lined with rotting books, and the air smelled of damp paper. She felt a tugging sensation, as if something unseen was leading her deeper. At the back of the library, she found a diary on a small desk. The pages were filled with the shaky handwriting of a child. "He watches us. He punishes us. We can't leave." Nora felt cold fingers brush her shoulder. She spun around, but no one was there. The haunting escalates. The group reunited at the entrance, their faces. The ghostly encounter. The group fled deeper into the school, desperate to find another exit. In the cafeteria, they were met by the apparitions of children, ghostly figures with hollow eyes and expressions of despair. "They're trapped," Sophia whispered. "They've been here since the storm." One child stepped forward, a girl with long dark hair. "He won't let us go," she said, her voice echoing. "You shouldn't have come." "Who?" Dylan asked. The shadows shifted, and a tall, dark figure emerged. It was the headmaster, his skeletal face twisted into a cruel grin. "Welcome to detention," he hissed. The climax, a battle for freedom. The group scattered as the headmaster lunged. The air grew thick with the smell of smoke, and the building seemed to come alive. Walls closing in, floors warping, and doors vanishing. Emma found the diary Nora had discovered. Inside was a chant written in Latin, a spell meant to banish the headmaster. "We have to read this!" she shouted, gathering the others. As the headmaster closed in, the group stood in a circle, chanting the spell. The shadows swirled violently, and the headmaster screamed, his form disintegrating into ash. The children's spirits glowed brightly before fading into the light. the escape, and aftermath. The doors reopened, and the group stumbled out as the first rays of dawn broke through the trees. The school behind them was silent once more, its oppressive aura lifted. They never spoke of that night again, but they each bore scars, emotional and physical, that reminded them of the horrors within Blackwood Academy. And though the headmaster was gone, the school remained, waiting, watching, for the next group of curious souls to step inside and learn the true meaning of detention.